Welcome to Biz Dev Live. I am so excited to bring you Olivia Nunn today. We're going to be talking about believing in yourself. We're going to talk about empowering yourself, getting to really understand that, yes, you can do it. This is Biz Dev Live. My name is Cameron Toth. Motivation, inspiration. You'll get those both with Cameron Toth. I'm so excited to bring you Olivia Nunn today. Stay with me. We'll be right back after the Biz Dev Live theme.
Biz Dev Live, Biz Dev Live. Weekdays at 11 Eastern Time, live. Biz Dev Live, Biz Dev Live. Weekdays at 11 Eastern Time. Leadership and motivation, empathy and inspiration, Biz Dev Live, Biz Dev Live. Business development, not even selling it. Biz D with C, brought to you by Cameron T. Biz D with C, brought to you by Cameron T. This is business development, not even selling it. This is business development, not even selling it. Biz Dev Live, Biz Dev Live. Biz Dev Live. This is business development, not even selling it.
All right, so I'm excited to bring Olivia Nunn to the screen. Olivia Nunn is an experienced executive director of communications with a demonstrated history of over 10 years working in the government relations industry, CEO of Olivia Nunn Communications LLC. Olivia is known as an experienced change agent leader that delivers key workforce objectives in relation to diversity, equality, and inclusion. Olivia recently launched the Military Officers Association of America's podcast series. Notably, she retired after 20 years of dedicated service in the United States Army as an Army Public Affairs Officer and Soldier for Life podcast host. Olivia, thank you so much for being on the show with me today.
Thanks, Cameron, for the opportunity to share with your audience. Super excited. I know I had a conversation with you last year. So to be able to come back on your show and to be able to talk all things business and, kind of dig into my story. So thank you. Appreciate it.
No, I'm excited to have you. Yeah, we did the Master Connection series show with Steve Spiro, and it was a lot of fun, blast. And, Steve's big deal is the light. And I love having you on today because you have an amazing story, an inspirational story. I think you have so much to offer and give. So I'm excited to bring that to folks. If you're watching this live, make sure you're letting us know where you're viewing from. Very excited to have you. And remember, your questions, if you're struggling around issues of self-perception, that sort of thing, we want your questions, right? We want to know what you're feeling. The more specific you are, the more we can help you. Olivia, tell me how you're helping people right now, what you're kind of doing, providing services, and then we'll kind of get into the backstory here.
Yeah, so I think, to start there, I have to kind of back up a little bit. So right before I retired, my last 3 years, my job was U.S. Army Soldier for Life. I think a lot of people know that, but some don't, and they have followed my journey. And U.S. Army Soldier for Life is an organization that reaches out and connects the United States Army with any agency that wants to give back. Layman's term, we're a matchmaker, right? What do we matchmake? It's everything from business opportunities, employment, health, education, wellness, all of those good things. And if we do it strategically at the beginning, this whole soldier for life and that cycle, that mindset, so that when service members are actually transitioning out, because we've laid that groundwork, that transition should ideally be smoother, right? Because we know that it isn't perfect. And it's a lot better than it used to be, but there's still work that has to be done. With that being said, I took that idea because I loved what I did for the Army. I think the Army finally got it right and got me the best job in the world. It was where I was able to shine as an Army public affairs officer. I was the director of communications. I launched the podcast while I was there. I ran all the social media. I literally went all around the world being a communicator. I gave presentations. I have been invited to be a speaker. And I just realized that that was my love, that I truly loved being a communicator on a grand scale. So taking that forward, how do I do that? And how do I do that from a monetary perspective, but at the same time giving back? I realized that even though I hung up my uniform, I wanted to still give back. My heart remains with the military community, and I've shared that on my social media post. What does that mean? So I'm giving back in a couple ways. Yes, I continue to podcast. I podcast on behalf of MOA, which stands for Military Officers Association of America. They are an organization that not only helps represent the military at large, but they also go to Capitol Hill, right? They're a lobbying organization. So, and I want people to not get hung up around the officer side of the house. They represent the military, because as a uniform member, we can't send our voice to Capitol Hill per se, but MOA is an organization that can. And that's something that I'm excited that I get to be a part of, that staff, that organization, and talk about the same topics, but a little more no holds bar, because I don't have a uniform that's holding me back. So get to do that. Well, what else am I doing? Well, this month, I also announced that I am the executive director to a nonprofit. And with that, I continuously can be able to give back to the military community. With that, it's with my partner, who is the president of the board, and he created this foundation, which is Work Play Obsession All In. And this nonprofit was all about how do we come together as an organization that gives back to the military community in a way. And for him, it all started with his love and his passion of jiu-jitsu, because that's really where it all lies. And from there, it kind of fostered into other avenues and other physical fitness things. That how do you get together to heal the invisible wounds of military trauma? And so it kind of shuttered a little bit because of COVID. So now we're working together. How do we revive that? How do we revamp that and get back to its roots? So, look out as this year progresses, as we kind of trying to bring that back. So that's another part. And then the third part is that, in that same vein, I've been asked in the last few years, Olivia, we want to hear more, and we want to hear more of beyond the uniform, beyond the service, beyond the policies and the politics. So I want to have more candid conversations. So we are going to, me and my partner that I just spoke about, his name is Topaz Navarro. We are going to launch a whole new podcast series in a couple of months. It's called Calm in the Storm. You can follow us on Instagram. And that concept is to talk about all the things that we talk about, but in a more, some of it's going to be serious, but also in a funny, sing-songy way. He is retiring as a sergeant major. In fact, he's clearing right now. He retires out 1 September. And, he's a sergeant major. I'm a lieutenant colonel. So it's going to be that little bit of that back and forth, that dialogue of like the officer, the enlisted side. He spent 20 years in special operations, 25 years total in the Army. But, how do you, that special ops side versus regular Army, all those things in between, kind of that, the comedy and the joke that comes with it, but the seriousness. And we want to talk about mental health. We want to talk about fitness. We want to talk about what life is after, divorce, because we both have gone through that. All of those things, all those tough conversations. What does race mean, right? Because he is Black and Puerto Rican, and I'm Korean and English. Like, what does that mean? And what does that mean in service? What does that mean being a parent? Right. So all of those things, and how do we generate those conversations and give back to the community? And, oh, by the way, I'm involved with another organization. I'm an ambassador to Burbiz, which is a community organization that gives back. Scott Davidson is the co-founder of that. And he does these huge, massive veteran organization events, 2 to 3 times a year. We just got back from Las Vegas. Another one's going to happen in March, April timeframe here in the DC area. And, it's all about giving back. And I get to be a part of his team, and I'm his ambassador for that. So that's how I give back to the community, is truly like, how do I impart the knowledge that I have, the things, the nuggets that I've been able to walk away with. And so it's not uncommon. I get tagged I get messaged, Olivia, I'm about to transition. What should I be going through? I've been following you. I hear you, but at the same time, what am I doing right or wrong? So, that for me is where my passion is. That's where I get excited about every single day is what can I do better? How do I improve myself so that I can be the best that I can be to give back to this community that it means so much to me?
You're doing so much. And I think, folks are going to be interested in just hearing how you're able to sort of commit your mind and time and energy to doing all this, because I'm sure there's days where you feel overwhelmed and you feel like you don't have it in you, but there's things that you do, there's strategies that you put together to actually be able to keep going. Because I'm listening to you talk about all the many projects, and I'm like, it's overwhelming, and I imagine it's got to be a little bit overwhelming for you at times. We got some folks checking in here, so Topaz, excited for the upcoming project that you got together. We got Jack from NYC checking in, Stephanie. Everybody's talking to each other and networking in the comments, as I encourage you to do. So excited that you guys are doing that. Maribel Rivera checking in from NYC. Rebecca Wakefield checking in from Mawa. We got Amy in the house from New City. Topaz is repping Columbia, Maryland. Yes, right. We got Steven checking in from Little Elm, Texas. So excited that everybody's with us here. So talk to me a little bit about what you were thinking about when you were growing up. I love hearing people's story, and because, obviously you got some motivation driving you behind the things that you do. I want to hear the military story from being a little girl. Were you initially thinking you were going to go into the military? What were you thinking? What did little Olivia want to be when she was growing up? How did that work out?
So it all started because my dad served. So I'm second generation to serve in the United States Army. I might be biased, but I think the Army is the best force, right? We say it constantly, but at the end of the day,
Hoorah.
when it comes to service and being out there together, at the end of the day, regardless of what branch you represent, service matters because 99% of America doesn't serve. They're not connected. So there's something to be said when you serve. However, I'm going to be a little biased, and I still think the Army is the best. With that being said, my dad served in the Army. He was enlisted. He was a combat engineer. I'm the first of three girls, and I am daddy's little girl. And I just knew since the age of 4 that I wanted to be like my dad. I wanted to go in the Army. My dad, was born and raised in Korea. He was adopted over as a child to America. And so, he's half Korean and half English. And so he's got some trauma about, coming to America and, not being enough. And, I've got some of that I've spoken about not being enough, being a biracial person myself. But I knew that that's what I wanted to be. Like, I thought, what my dad did was cool. I remember helping him like iron his uniform and spit shine his boots and put brasso on his, like all of that. I remember doing all of that, thinking it was so cool. And I remember even standing in formation with him as a kid. I had no idea what being in the Army really meant. And I do remember my dad telling me, you will not enlist. You will go to college and become an officer. I had no idea what that meant. I just knew that that's what my dad told me to do, that I had to go to college and I had to become an officer. And that's very something that's rooted in the Asian community and the Korean community, that you get a degree. So I knew that that was the trajectory that I was going. How I was going to get there, what exactly I was going to do in the Army, I had no clue. Um, to answer the second part is what did I want to be? And I toggled between being a lawyer and a doctor. Those are the two things that I kept wanting to be. And I think it goes back to that's kind of how the Korean community is. Like,
Yeah.
they kind of drill
Yeah.
into your head like this very white collared profession of these, very lofty goals. And I think that's what I wanted to do, is because I've been taught to always honor my family. I've always done what they've asked me to do. I've always had
And
a
I
rebellion.
want to say that you probably, I would say that's a very common immigrant experience. I grew up in the country where my wife is a foreign national, right? And so, uh, she's become a citizen, but we got that immigrant thing going on in our family. And I know For me, the way I was raised and what I experienced, I'm hearing you talk about your father, and I'm like, yep, get that degree. You're going to get paid more when you get into the military, right?
Yes.
All those drivers going on. So I definitely identify with your story. Keep going.
So, so those were the two things that I was toggling back and forth. And so I went to college. I actually went to college here in Virginia at Radford University, and I was a chemistry major. The intent was to go to med school. That was my whole concept. And that worked well until I realized I couldn't pass calculus. I took calculus 3 times, and math
Oh
and
no.
me we just didn't jive. I was amazing at science. I got biochemistry. I rocked all of that. I just couldn't get behind the math. Like, I just couldn't. I had tutors. I remember sitting in my last final and I was crying. And I think my teacher felt so bad because I'd been in his class these 3 semesters in a row. And he was just like, because I knew I should have technically gotten an F. And I think he felt so bad. He just gave me a T. And I was like, I'm going to take that. And I think that's my sign that being a chemistry degree completion is probably not in the cards for me. And I switched over to business. I ended up graduating with a business management degree. And I realized that maybe med school wasn't the way I needed to go. And I could find myself in another way. I think the goal was just commission, just get into the Army and figure out your passion and where you needed to go. And then in my service, the idea of being a lawyer came back. And I thought, oh, maybe I could be a lawyer. And then I quickly realized, no, I don't want to be. So, all that to say, that's what a little Olivia wanted to be. And I didn't necessarily meet that mark, only in the fact that I did join the Army. I didn't know how long I was going to stay. I had no clue, because the best advice I got my first job from my first company commander, he said, Olivia, you stay in until it no longer remains fun.
Mm.
And it only became no longer fun until the end. And by that point, I'm at 20 and it's time to go. And my choice to leave, and I've shared this, was when the Army was like, we're going to PCS you, and it's time to go to either Egypt or Korea. And I'm staring at my
Okay,
son.
now I'm not going to recognize certain terms. Michael Stoddard, who was in the Army for 30 years, he's going to recognize the term, but I'm not going to recognize the term. So I got to ask you, what's PCS, so we can break that down so we understand that journey. And I just want to shout out to everybody that's watching this a veteran. Thank you for your service. Olivia, thank you for your service. Appreciate you so much, but definitely shout us out. I think one of the things that's always surprising to me, because and I think we'll talk a little bit about this today, right? Sometimes people come back from a military life and they don't really have that on the resume. And so it sort of becomes a surprise. And I know there's different reasons why people don't choose to present that in different aspects. As you were talking about your business degree, I was thinking to myself, man, I bet there's a lot of veterans that you've worked with that are really happy that you went and got that business degree, right? So ended up being a fortunate thing. But talk to me about what PCS means and continue
Yeah,
the
of
story
course.
there.
So PCS is basically Army telling you it's time to move. Pack up your bags and go to a new assignment, is what it is, really what it was.
Okay,
And I'd
gotcha.
been in the DC region for quite some time, and they're like, "Hey, we need to move you." And my son at that time was about 8 months old, and I was nursing
Mm.
him. I was looking down at it. Literally, I got the call and I was nursing him, and I was like, "No, I do not want to move. I can't imagine leaving my kids." And I
Mm.
know full stop that there have been women that have done this, that they've been asked to take that call where they have left their kids, and God bless them.
Yeah.
It gives a whole new meaning of of understanding that in a way that that I didn't do, because I wanted to chase my career before I had kids, and that's kind of why I'm an older mom. Is I wanted to hit some benchmarks in my career, and looking down at my young son, he's my second child, and I said, no way. And so that
And
choice
I
was,
have to imagine, just staying on that for 1 second, with lots of women being put in that position of having to make that choice. I mean, that's something that you got to imagine there's a better way around having a career in the military and having to make some of those hard decisions around moving simply for the sake of moving. Simply, it sounds rough. Sounds really rough.
it's part of the lifestyle, and I'm not going to sugarcoat it. It is part of the lifestyle, and
Yeah.
that's the thing that you've got to accept in being in the military. There are better ways in which how leadership can handle those moves, and how you choose to move them, and when you move your service member, but that's a whole separate discussion that we can get into. But at the end of the day, there have been hundreds of women that have done it. They've done it gracefully. They've done it well. And they have, exceeded the expectation and the call when we've asked them to serve. And so, to a shout out to all the women that have done it, hats off to them.
Absolutely.
And for me, I just realized that I didn't want to do that. And I had the opportunity to be able to hang up my boots because I was so near retirement. And it just didn't make sense for me to go beyond 20. I hit that mark. I could do it. And it allowed me to move on to, I wouldn't say bigger and better because I don't want to make it seem like the Army was this bad thing because it wasn't. It gave me
Right.
all the skills that I have today. It's given me, so much. It's connected me with a community, a tribe, a family that you won't get anywhere else. So I don't want to say bigger. I would like to say that, it was the first book, right? Many people like to say chapter. I would say it was the first book of my life. And now I get to rewrite the second book. Or start the second book.
That's amazing. And so tell us a little bit about the journey through the military. I mean, you talk about, and I appreciate that so much because I have young people that I'm talking to, right, that are, just in this wavelength of, I'm looking to go into the military, and I not having served, I have generations behind me that serve, but I personally didn't serve. And so I'm trying to sort of walk that line as a civilian that doesn't have that experience of saying, hey, I think it's a good idea. I think I regret as a younger man not taking the opportunity that the military provided more seriously. I'm a civic minded person. So the opportunity to get that military experience on your record as serving, I think people go to college and a lot of the college experience piece is proving that you can get through something and do something for 4 years, in addition to the education, in addition to the networking things. And military provides a lot of that in a lot better ways than I think a lot of colleges do. It's dangerous. There's some added risks to that learning adventure that you're going to go on. But in terms of income opportunity, in terms of life experience, and in terms of opportunities and doors, and that's something that I'm really hugely passionate about. I've been involved with a nonprofit that provides college and career preparation services. And so the big goal for me is you get somebody young and you open up doors of opportunity and doors of education. And I think the military definitely provides that. So if we can sort of stick to the military experience here, just so people can sort of hear that haven't gotten that, or maybe need a new perspective on their military experience. What did that military experience open your eyes to? What was that education like, and how's that sort of strengthened your work outside of the military now?
So I think, the first stop is the military, specifically United States Army, because that's what I know, right? Is you've got to look at it as a doorway of opportunity. When you enter through that doorway, you're going to come out on the other side a changed person. The Army is going to give you the ability to garner skills that you never had before. It's going to test you in ways that you've never imagined, both mentally, physically, emotionally, and spiritually. And here are some intangibles that I think people don't realize. You're going to come back out gaining a fellowship and a family that you would never have before. Simply by the fact that you're going to say veteran, that's going to connect you with a family that you've never realized that was available to you. And there's something to be said about service connection. There are stories after stories that you're going to be able to relate to other people that other people aren't going to get. There's
Yeah.
something to be said about sharing what it means to wear that uniform, whether it was in combat or not. And education, full stop. If you're young and you happen to catch this conversation, you're wondering, how do I afford college? I don't know how to do it, right? College was something that was very expensive even for me. My parents couldn't afford it. I paid through college. I came out of debt for my undergrad $50,000, and it took me 18 years to pay it off. I have 3 degrees though. My last 2 are masters, but the Army paid for that, right? So what I'm
Love
driving
that.
at is that the Army is a great avenue for education. Like, it is amazing the amount of education opportunities. Advancement through rank, whether you're enlisted or officers, is all about advancement, not only from your skill set of your military occupational specialty, but also your education. What are you filling your mind with? Right. And if you are also at the standpoint of, well, the books aren't for me, I get that. the Army is also investing the, time back into our service members to be able to come out with vocational skills, right? You want to be a masonry, you want to be HVAC technician, you want to be an electrician, all of those things. Think of Mike Rowe and Dirty Jobs, those types of things that built America, the skill set that requires to build America, right? Those are just as important. You can't become a great bricklayer and build an amazing, building, something that we marvel at overnight. It takes time and it takes skill. And so all of those things the Army can give you. Oh, by the way, they're going to give you tuition assistance dollars or credentialing assistance dollars every single fiscal year to do that. So it doesn't cost you anything. Maybe a little bit of time and service, but you could walk away by giving back in commitment to service to our nation by coming back out a changed person, filling your head, your heart, and your mind with things that you never even realized. And here are some of the intangible soft skills, right? You're going to learn leadership. You're going to learn how to work with people from all different places and zip codes all across America. The military is a diverse structure because we come from everywhere. We come from, when I say privilege, I'm talking privilege from a monetary perspective. People that come from money, people that don't come from money. You're going to work with everybody from all walks of life. And you have to learn, because at the end of the day, what you personally believe does not matter. We have to believe in the mission, and we have to get that mission done. Because if we don't, the people left and right of us are going to perish. And so that's what we drive at. And so you learn those things over time, and you come back out on the backside a changed person. And again, I say these things from a very, holistic perspective. I'm not going to sit there and say that it is a perfect system, or that there aren't discrepancies, or that there isn't racism, or that there isn't sexism in the military, because there is, right? There's plenty of news stories you can see that. But overall, it is a better, when you compare us, if you took us to college, if you compared us to a slice of, civilian sector, the military does a whole lot better. And that's what I'm driving at, is that look at the military as a doorway of opportunity. And you don't have to commit 20 years like I did. You can, you absolutely can. But if you just want to go in for 4 years to get to get dollars for education, do it. Because man, I know that sounds like I'm the person that's saying the broken record, and I'm so committed to something because I'm jaded. Sure, maybe, but you know, take to heart that there's a reason why I stayed for 20. There's a reason why, I so love the military tribe that's around me. And no, I don't know every single one of them. I know that's kind of hard to believe because I do know a lot of people, but like there's something to be said to be connected, and even generations. Like there are times that I will meet another veteran who didn't serve in the same time frame, that served 20 years before me, and yet the same stories come through, the same thread.
Well, and this we got to compare to like alumni networks, right? And so you don't get a bigger alumni network than through being a part of the military, right? I can't think of another organization that has a larger alumni association than the military, right? You got a lot of brothers and sisters out there, and I want to get into our talking points here, because somebody coming out of the military, and I've heard it a few times, and I'm not somebody that has a large network of military veterans in my life, but I've heard it, and I'm certain you've heard it as well. But that civilians don't treat military veterans particularly well, that they don't honor the experience that they've gotten inside of the organization when it comes to hiring for corporate roles and all that. So, in we have these these takeaways today. And our first one is, you are the limiting belief. Don't sell yourself short. You are more than capable. And I have to say, when I hear some of these things, I hear the negative self-talk in them. That some, they're saying, oh, they're not accepting of me. And it's like a self-fulfilling prophecy. Anybody that's saying something along the lines of, not to say that there's not truth to it. If you're a woman, not to say that you're not going to be biased against. If you're a little bit of an older person, that people aren't going to be ageist with you. But if that's sort of what you're putting out there instead of, all right, I have this issue and this is how I'm going to tackle it. Right. It's a little bit of it's a little bit different.
No, you're absolutely right. I think, what you are your limiting belief by what you say and what you believe, right? So if you're filling your head and your heart with, I can't do this, then you're going to believe that. And it's easy to think that because for whatever reason, you feel like I don't fit, I'm a misfit, or they don't get me because I say all these acronyms, or I've worn the uniform too long. You know, I'm going to admit, I am a government contractor by day. And yes, even though I'm a government contractor, you would think that I would have fit very well into the organization that I went into. And they are a different side of the military construct, right? They're part of the IC, which is the uh I'm drawing a blank here. They're part of the a certain type of community, like the information community, intelligence community, and they're a little weird. And I've got some friends that are in the intelligence world, and so I'm sure they're probably going to say a bunch of stuff to me later. But they're really weird, and they don't necessarily operate the same way that I did when I spent 20 years with all the operators, with all the combat arms guys, the tankers, the infantry guys. And let me tell you, I'm kind of a misfit even in that group, even though we're kind of a military group. All that to say is that if you sit there and tell yourself that you don't belong, you're going to believe that, and that's going to come off. And then you're going to sell yourself short in anything. And I think that's really true when it comes to business. And for the longest time, I was told, Olivia, you need to start an LLC. So, let's move this conversation towards why we're here about business, right? You know, I am the founder and I started my own company called Olivia Nunn Communications LLC. And it was a journey to get to that, right? It wasn't something that just, I'm going to do it. It took some time and it took some prodding from people that saw something in me and believed in me because I was my own limiting belief, because I felt that I couldn't do it. I don't know why. I just felt like, well, I was good enough to do it as a lieutenant colonel in the Army because I was equipped to do it as a lieutenant colonel. I had the resources as a lieutenant colonel, but I don't know if I could do it as Olivia Nunn without the lieutenant colonel, without the Army standing behind me. And it was literally a couple years of some key people in my life saying, Olivia, you can do this. You have all the skill set. I hear you every single day. In fact, it was my cubicle mate, Major General Russell. She's like, Olivia, I hear you every single day for the last 2 years. You pitch every single day. People call you, they blow up your phone, your emails, they're asking for your guidance. Everything that you say here as Lieutenant Colonel Nunn, you would turn around and say as Olivia Nunn. So why don't you have an LLC? And I was like, yeah, that's not true. She's like, you can. And I will tell you what the breaking point was for me, that I realized what Major General Russell was telling me all that time, where it finally just, the light bulb went on. And that's Scott Davidson, the co-founder of Burbiz, right?
Mm.
He called me up. He said, hey, Olivia, I know you're about to retire. You're right there. You're in your transition window. Let's have lunch. And there's a ton of other things going on in my life, right? My transition was hard. I was going through a divorce. There's all kinds of stuff. And, we'll get to my hashtag of I am the storm. And I had lunch with him. And he was like, Olivia, when are you going to start an LLC? Because I have work for you. And I looked at him and I said, you do? He said, Olivia, I've been waiting for you to get out so I could give you work, because you can do this. You're going to nail it and you're going to be amazing. And sitting there across the table at lunch from him, I finally realized all the things that Major Russell had been telling me. And Scott Davidson, who is a dear friend of mine, who I've worked with in my capacity as Soldier for Life, who I believed in his mission set, and I loved working with him. And here he was giving me an opportunity to come work on his team from a civilian capacity. He was just like, Olivia, where's your LLC? Get going. And I finally just realized I was the person holding me back. And literally the very next day, I called an attorney and said, let's start this. Let's start my LLC. And that's how it all happened. Right.
I got to say this is because this is such a wonderful thing. When people pay you the compliment, to take the words that are rattling around in their brain. And I think we've all been in that situation where we've seen somebody that are really talented at their job, their role, their position. We wish, oh man, I wish that person worked for me. They would be awesome. They actually take that from the inside of their brain and put it on the outside and say, Olivia, Cameron, it's such a big deal to give that gift. I was listening to Rise and Grind video with Glenn Lundy. He's going to be on the show Thursday, and he was talking about morning routines. And in addition to, not pushing the snooze alarm, getting up, getting some physical activity, not paying attention to the phone and making sure you're having that attitude of gratitude. One of the pieces that he said of a daily practice is reaching out to somebody with some good words, compliment, something like that. It is such a gift, such a gift. And those folks that are paying that compliment and asking you to work with them, it only benefits them. I mean, at the end of the day, right? I mean, it's self-interest, but so much of the time we're afraid from letting other people know about their talents and shy to let them know that they're awesome at what they're doing. It's such a gift. And I love that you had some folks that were willing to do that with you.
No, I so agree. And one thing I didn't share in the whole initial part of what else am I doing to give back? I am a title holder. I am Ms. New York. I represent the great state of New York. Even though I live here in the DC region, I'm competing in a pageant. In fact, next month in February, I go back to Las Vegas to compete at the national level to be the national Ms. representation. And for me,
congratulations again, and
thanks.
Go New York. I'm repping New York here in Westchester, New York. Thank you for repping New York and doing it well.
Oh, thank you. And it's more than just a tiara. It's more than just beautiful gowns and sashes. And it's all of these queens that I've met, right? All of, these beautiful women that I've met, and each one of them that I've spent time with, advancing through these stages is that they give back. Every day it's these affirmations about, you are beautiful, you are worthy, and that you are talented. Yes, we're all competing against each other, but that's not what we're competing against. It's about making sure that the best version of ourselves show up every single day. And that's what I really love about all of this is that, when you give yourself the best version of yourself and you're willing to share that, and then, at the same time, it doesn't hurt to tell somebody that they're beautiful, that they're worthy, that they it changes their perspective about who they are and how they see their day. And that's something that, let me tell you, when I had my own walk of mental health of when, and the truth is, I've been very honest. I planned it all out. I planned it all out to not be here, right? The Army made me a very effective and lethal planner. I'm very good at that, right? Military officer equals planner. And I was amazing at what I did. And I planned it down strategically. I thought everything through, right? How do I make it less impactful to my family? Because when you're hurting that deep, you don't think that it's going to hurt them because you think that you're the problem. Because again, what else does the Army teach you? How to solve problems. And in those dark moments, I saw myself as a problem. So how do I remove myself as a problem? And how do I create the most effective plan to do that? And if you don't fill your life with daily affirmations of that you need to take up space, that you are worthy and you need to be here, right? And it's not just talking about mental health. It's more than that. You could find yourself in a bad place, and it doesn't hurt if for you, and when I'm saying you, I'm saying anybody who's listening, it doesn't hurt to pay somebody a compliment. It takes a second out of your day to say, you look beautiful today, or I appreciate what you did for me, or that presentation, you knocked it out of the park.
And let me say this just because you're saying it. If a guy, because we're on LinkedIn, right? We're because this gets into some other issues, but I think there's a right way, a not creepy way to pay a compliment, and then there's a creepy way. And I know sometimes for me, if I see somebody of the opposite sex and I'm thinking, man, they look beautiful, I do think twice about saying, I may not say it. And if I do, I try to find a way that isn't creepy to say it, right?
No, let's be honest, right? And I think that's part of having these discussions is and I say this all the time, you have to be comfortable with the uncomfortableness. And part of the uncomfortableness is that, how do you pay compliment without being creepy? Because there are creeps, right? And I don't want, at the end of the day, I don't want men and women to walk away from not giving a compliment because they're afraid that, oh, that person's going to take it the wrong way. And I think you're just honest about it, right? Instead of beating around the bush, just say, like, hey, I just want to tell you, and I don't mean this in any other way. Please don't take it as such. I just want to say you look beautiful today because I think your outfit is on point.
There you go.
Boom, you did it, right? You told them where the mindset you're coming from. You're not trying to be creepy, and you said it out right. Effective communication and being upfront.
I like that. Just straight saying, hey, I don't mean to be creepy. I don't want to be creepy. I just want to let you know that you're beautiful. And Olivia, you are beautiful today. And I feel like I can say that without being a creep today. Here we go.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
And I want to mention this because we got David Castaneda in the comments here, and he wrote a long comment. I want to read it because it's definitely pertinent to the conversation here. When we transition from the military, we must bring the attitude we had while we were on active duty. Adapt and overcome is even more important after our service than what it was while serving. If we don't keep that mindset, we will continue to make, and I got to de-highlight it here so I can actually read it because it's not letting me see the whole thing. Keep that mindset. We'll continue to make excuses as to why civilians don't get us. It's not about civilians getting us. It's about us getting our new environment, which is society. I am the storm, and any environment is what we need to strive for. Active duty or society. Live your storm with passion, the way you served your country. Do not allow a negative mindset to hold you down. Your storm is your life. Live it to the fullest. Semper Fidelis. So I think it's a perfect opportunity to talk about I am the storm. And thank you, David, for giving us that nice little segue here.
Yeah, so I am the storm. It's something that I've been putting all over my social media. It is my platform. It's a platform that I'm using in my pageant competition. But what does that really mean? And I realized that not everybody understood what that means. And I kind of alluded a little bit to it. Last year I went through transition. I knew I was retiring and I went through that whole retirement process. And at the same time, I found myself going through a divorce. It was unexpected. And it was unexpected, I think, for both me and my ex-spouse. We were married for 16, but together for 20. So that was my whole entire military career that we were together. And just towards the end, we just couldn't make things work. And unfortunately, our love story had come to an end. And at the end of the day, divorce, nobody wins. Nobody wins at that. It's not a game about winning, and you leave it shattered and broken. And my ex is a wonderful human being, and I'm not saying that because I live this false life on social media, because I teach transparency and being authentic. It's just we just couldn't work out, and it was best that we went our own way. And I love him dearly, and I wish him the best. And we co-parent. We have 2 beautiful children, and he's an amazing human being. And for that, during that time, I hit my low because all I knew was being Lieutenant Colonel Olivia Nunn, or fill in whatever blank, because I went through the military with him. We met at the very beginning. We were both Army officers. I was dual military. It's part of that identity, right? That's another part of the conversation we haven't had yet. The identity of being the military. I was a mother. I was a wife. And all of that was literally being stripped away all overnight. I was retiring, and the person that I thought I was going to spend the rest of my life with, the person that I loved, that I was going to die for, was not going to be there anymore. And I found myself planning, right? That's what I'm talking about. I planned how to end my life. I'm talking straight up suicide, right? I'm not going to beat around the bush. And people say, how could you have planned this when you're a mom? Like, as a mother, why would you do this? And I up to that point, I would have said the same thing, and I would ask the same question. But when you're hurting that bad, when you're that broken in those moments, it's something that you don't truly understand until you get there. And for me, I realized to come up out of that, because what else the Army has taught me? The Army has taught me how to be resilient. The Army has taught me how to rise above every single situation. And after I went through that, I went through I leaned on faith. Faith is very important to me. My family, I had friends and family that loved me hard. And when I say they loved me hard, they checked on me. They called me. They wouldn't accept me wallowing in my pity, in my guilt, in my pain. And I was hurting bad. And when you are a type A aggressive female, I mean, most women are in the military, I didn't know how to ask for help at all. I physically didn't know how to open my mouth and say I needed help. And here I am, a lieutenant colonel in the Army, access to all these resources. I knew all the organizations out there that could have helped with all the things that I was working with. Hello, I was working for US Army Soldier for Life. And when I finally realized I needed to make that call, I couldn't find one organization that could have helped me. They're all like, we can help you in 6 months to a year. And I'm like, I don't have 6 months. I don't even know if I'm going to have today. And so for me, it's coming to the lowest of low and realizing that I came out on the other side because I had the resources. I had the skill set we talked about earlier, right? The Army taught me all
Yeah.
these amazing things. I went through an intense amount of therapy, and I realized that life is a storm. How you ride that storm, how you come out on the other side of the storm is how you're going to look at life. We have one life, right? And I want to live this well, and I choose to take up space. So I am the storm. I am the storm because I choose to be here. I am the storm because I realize now what mental health really means in a way that I never understood before. I am the storm because when you're that broken, you can still color, right? I have a book on my nightstand. It says broken crayons still color, right? Broken doesn't mean that you're not whole, right? And I know that sounds weird, but you could still give back, right? It doesn't mean that you're going to be at the bottom for the rest of your life, or that you're unworthy or unlovable or anything like that. It just means that you're just a little shooken up, right? Maybe your edges are a little worn, but you have to find yourself, right? And for me, I leaned on faith, and I had friends and family that loved me hard to help me find me. And really, the Army taught me how to be resilient, right? They taught me how to be a fighter, how to get back up. And I walked away 8 months later realizing that I am the storm. And so it is a hashtag. It is my motto. It is what I believe in. And I realize now that there is not enough resources out there, period, for the military community. We talk about stop soldier suicide. We talk about mental health. We talk about all of these problems within the military community. But yet, if you start digging down that hole, if you start following that thread and you make that phone call, what's actually on the other line? There's not a whole lot. There's not a whole lot for active duty. There's not a whole lot for the veteran. There's not a whole lot for the family and the caregivers. We're just tapped out. And that's unacceptable. That's unacceptable. Here I am as a lieutenant colonel with a loud voice and aggressiveness. And I never have taken no for an answer. And I had the ability to do that. If I knew how to do that, and yet the answer was still no to me, I cannot imagine where the majority of our force is, E5 or below, a lieutenant or below, who do not know how to use their voice, that don't know how to say that, that don't understand how impactful their voice can be, and they're being said no, right? That cannot be the answer. That's unacceptable to me. 22 a day, that's a very conservative number. We have to stop that. We have to change that. And we change that through advocacy and through action and changing policy. And that is why I stand behind I am a storm and my hashtag. And I'm going to use my voice. I'm going to use my platform. I'm going to use who I am, and igniting both sides of that community. When I say the two communities, I'm talking about the military community and the civilian community, to drive policy changes and getting resources, because it matters. I get it. For the first time, I understood it in a way never before. And no cannot be an answer.
I love that. And we got so many people chiming in. Stephanie saying, what a blessing you are. Thank you for stepping out for those who need help and served us. I also think about this conversation around self-advocacy. And that takes us to takeaway number 2 here. But the idea that you can advocate for yourself. And if you have children, especially young children, but children regardless of age, teaching them and making sure that they understand how to advocate for themselves. Because I got to feel like, when you were at that low point, you were just feeling like, there's no help to the situation. I mean, certainly you're expressing that you didn't feel like there was the sufficient resources for you. And I have to feel that I think a lot of people feel that way. I look at my kids and they have a fairly good situation, but my daughter, who's extremely talented, I see her get into moments, and we're marching towards a Sweet 16, a quinceanera delayed, um, and just getting into a conversation around, she's trying to ask some folks to be chambelanas, part of her court of honor, and the frustration that she has just in asking somebody because she doesn't have that confidence there. And then I'm having that conversation with her, and she's like, I didn't want to have the conversation because you were going to tell them. I'm like, what am I saying? I'm not beating you up. I'm just trying to help. And it's just these conversations that we have with ourselves that are so challenging. So, to know that you have resources and know that you can advocate for yourself, and to know that people are willing to help, and that if you ask, that help will come. Such a big deal for folks. As a business owner, there's help out there. You have resources. You can ask people. I love LinkedIn because it gives you that access. We're in a place in this day and age where you have more access than ever before, ever, period. I like Olivia's expression, full stop, right? You have more ability to reach out to somebody than ever before, but still we have folks that feel like there's no support. And obviously there's a lot of institutional things that rightfully so we can point to and say, hey, there isn't the right kind of support here. But that being said, and I'm going to set that for you, Olivia, let you finish that off.
Yeah. So I think you can't do life alone. As humans, we're not created to live life alone, right? Period. And with that, you don't learn anything on your own. You don't go through life alone. You definitely don't go through your military service alone, right? Why do you go through basic? It's to remove I, right? It's to learn what team is. So with that being said, is you have a team, you have a tribe. And sometimes we just have to take a moment, stop, and realize that we need to access that tribe. We need to ask help within that tribe. And, within that tribe, there are a ton of resources. There are people that are experts at their craft, at what they do. There's somebody within your network, I guarantee you. And if you don't personally know that person in the network, somebody in your network has a connection in their network that could get you that answer or knows. What am I talking about? So you have an idea, you want to become an entrepreneur, you want to own a business. Well, don't go blindly into the dark doing it. There are organizations and small business association, helps with that. There's a great organization in Syracuse, right, that assist veterans as they're out processing. Last 6 months, there are a ton of things that they do, right, that help transitioning service members set up for success. Everything from VWise, right? That's for women who are getting into business, specifically for women. And we could talk statistics about women and how there's not enough funding for women and women in businesses, but yet they're the fastest growing of all the businesses that are taking off, of all the demographics. Women and women businesses are where it's at, but yet they're not funded, right? There are more barriers to women and women businesses. All of these things, all these tools that are out there, maybe you didn't know because you didn't hear, you didn't check in. Maybe you didn't do the due diligence. Like I preached at Soldier for Life, start transitioning 24 months out, start doing your homework, all of those things. But regardless that you didn't know and you start doing your homework, but somebody in your resource knows. And then get a coach. And when I say get a coach, I'm not saying go pay for a coach, right? Now, there are some coaches that are out there that are amazing and you should pay them, because at the end of the day, you should pay somebody for their time and service because they are amazing at what they do, and you should pay them for their time and service, right? You don't expect a meal for free, so you shouldn't expect a service for free. However, a couple nugget here or there, sure, a good person would provide that for you. I don't mind doing that. But at the end of the day, I'm a business person too, right? If you want a full-blown kit from me, like that's going to cost you, right? I can't spend all my day giving away all of my information for free because, like I got to work too. So get a coach get somebody who really understands what it is that you're going into. You want to start a bakery? Well, I could think of one amazing bakery in the DC area, Dog Tag Bakery, that went down that road. I'm sure that somebody there would understand how to help you. They're an amazing resource. They've been interviewed quite often. They're amazing people. That's just an example. There's something that you want to get into. I guarantee you a veteran has done it. And somebody in your network is willing to share. There's enough resources out there. And if you don't know, ask. Again, it's all about asking. And I think far too often we don't want to ask for whatever reason because we are afraid to. We don't want to be viewed as being dumb. But take advantage. There's plenty of resources that are for free. And really you should start doing your homework before you transition so that you could create your path work and that when you finally hang up your uniform, it's a smooth glide path to the next thing. There's not this like huge gap, if you will.
Let me ask this question because I think, it's a real interesting thing in terms of reaching out and asking for help. Sometimes we assume, all right, I know Olivia does X, Y, Z, and so I can't ask her about this over here. For instance, maybe Olivia does communication, so I can ask her about communications, but I can't ask her about my marriage, or I can't ask her about, career, kind of stuff, resume kind of stuff. And I think it's really interesting because we sort of put people into boxes. We put ourselves into boxes, we're this, we're that, and we put other people into boxes. And I think that part of this whole, being able to sort of, and I think I sort of missed the takeaways with takeaway number 3 and going back to takeaway number 2, you are the expert, lean into your tribe, get a coach to help craft your message, right? This idea that you know more, right? You're more of an expert than you give yourself credit for, right? 1. And 2, I think we do that the same thing to other folks, right? We say, well, they can help us with this and only this, right? And so I think that fully having conversations with the people in your life to really understand that they have experiences in these different places. On the networking side, great business tip, having one-on-one conversations where you talk about different things, right? Not just, I want to sell you this cog or this, thing, and we're just going to have a conversation around that specific need. Getting to know people really helps you understand how much of a resource they can be for you and how much of a resource you can be for them. Because maybe I'm calling Olivia and I'm taking up part of her day, but there's things that I can give Olivia. So it makes it more meaningful and worthwhile for her to spend that time with me in a conversation.
No, you're absolutely right. I think, we shouldn't put limiting beliefs on ourselves as well as other people. And it doesn't hurt to ask, right? Yes, my area of expertise is social media, brand management, podcasting, all of that in the realm of communication, because that's what I do for a living. But that doesn't mean that I'm not willing to spend time and have a conversation about DEI, because that's something that I also do, right? I have an executive certificate on DEI because I'm passionate about that area. Women empowerment. I've gone all around the world giving speeches about that because I've lived that life, right? I'm a woman. I am a minority woman. I spent 20 years being many times the only woman in the room, when you spend all that time as a combat arms. And so, like I can have those conversations. Yeah, I was married, right? Dual military, and I went through a divorce and I'm a mother. So I can have all those kinds of conversations, right? And being a minority, first generation, all of that, right? A child that grew up in the 80s and 90s and what it means for assimilation and being biracial. So there's so many different topics of conversation that I can have on top of the things that you assume that I'm going to have: transition, the military, entrepreneurship, all of those things. And at the end of the day, you're never going to know unless you invest some time by simply asking, which goes back to one point that I always preach and teach about: network, network, network. Because your network is your net worth. And the
Yeah.
only way to grow your network is you got to get out of your living room, take a deep breath, go to an event, and just be courageous. Yeah, I get not everyone is an extrovert like me and, is okay with walking into a room of not knowing people. Cause I went to Vegas with my partner. And one event, I knew nobody except for the person that invited me, right? And the next event, I knew almost everybody because I was working for that event. But did that stop me from going to the event that I knew nobody? Absolutely not. You just need to get out of your comfort zone, extend your hand and say, "Hi, my name is." I know that sounds corny and cliche, but that's where it starts. You have to have a conversation, and you would be surprised at what you can learn and what you can walk away with. Because again, your
I
network
agree.
is so
And I think
important.
there's so many different ways, talking about expert, extrovert, introvert, for a lot of folks that look at me, assume, oh, this guy's doing these videos, he's got to be extroverted. But one of the sort of most comfortable feelings is walking into that cocktail party environment and there's a bunch of people I don't know. I'm not excited to go up and, if I know people and I'm, they're saying hello to me, I'm suddenly super comfortable and I'm good to go. But that moment of walking up to somebody that I don't know and having that conversation, I dread it. I don't want, it'll keep me from walking out the door sometimes. But there's so many different ways that you can show up. And now the pandemic has been a gift, I think, for some introverts. You can go out and meet the world via Zoom and do one-to-ones and face-to-faces, but getting out and actually doing that and setting it up and networking the right way and getting folks, into those conversations is really worthwhile. Olivia, I want to respect your time, the viewers' time. I thank everybody for showing up today. Rob Couture here at the end. Fantastic advice about networking. So we got some folks that are definitely appreciating that piece of the conversation.
And Rob is a
Big deal.
fantastic public affairs NCO. We work together. He's also retired as well, doing great things. So thanks, Rob.
All right, beautiful. So thanks, Rob, for being here. Susan Castelli, David, Stephanie, everybody that showed up today. We had so many people. Really, 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 really appreciate you all tuning in here. If you have questions, if you have needs, if you're feeling low, reach out to me. Reach out to Olivia. I know we're going to help you. I was posting before because we were talking about suicide. If you need help, reach out to somebody. If you don't feel comfortable reaching out to somebody like us or somebody that's a loved one in your life, make sure you reach out to that National Suicide Prevention Lifeline. We want you to get help, and your family wants you to get help. Your loved ones want you to get help. So make sure you're doing that. Olivia, take us out here. Let people know where they can find you, get in touch with you. I have your LinkedIn information in the video description on the appropriate social network, but let them know what website and place they can go to find you.
Yeah. So if you're a huge, obviously LinkedIn, from a business perspective, I'm on there. And if you're an Instagram person, because I'm a huge Instagram, I have 3 handles that you can follow. My first main handle is RCR Princess. That's me. That's kind of where I'm always at. My second handle is calm.in.the.storm. So calm in the storm. That is the new one with my partner where we're going to launch into a whole new podcast. We're going to talk all things, mental health, transition, love, life, loss, all those things. And I want to hear about it because, life is about that storm and how you come through. And I guess the fun part is you guys get to figure out who the calm and who the storm is. And then the other part is USOA Ms. New York. And that is all of my pageantry stuff. And so you can follow me there. So, the last plug is that, I am in this competition. If you'd love to support me on there, there is a way to give and to support me on that. I am trying to raise funds for that. And all of that will go to, and if I do win that from a People Choice Award, it goes to a nonprofit of my choice. And for that, that's Headstrong for me, because it's all about giving back to the military community and getting after mental health. So appreciate that.
That's amazing. Olivia Nunn, thank you so much. All right, everybody, make sure you check out Olivia Nunn on her Instagrams. I'm going to try to, I know you'll help me out with this. Olivia, put the post into the comments, especially on LinkedIn here. Thank you so much for doing this with me. I'm going to let you have the last word here. Let people know what you want to say, and I'll play us off with the BizDev theme here.
No, again, Cameron, thank you so much for giving me this chance this hour. Love the fact that I can always share my story. I'm available to anybody that needs to talk, right? My partner always talks about that, fellowship is important. And, I truly believe that as well. My heart remains with the military community and it'll remain there. Mental health is something that I'm passionate about. As you could tell, that's something that fires me up. And so, I ask that you guys check in on your buddies. We are a family, we are a tribe for a reason. And regardless if you wear the uniform or not, if you've already hung up that boots, that doesn't mean that our commitment to each other stops. So check in on each other, love one another, and appreciate the time.
Thank you.
Biz Dev Live, Biz Dev Live. Weekdays at 11 Eastern Time, live. Biz Dev Live, Biz Dev Live. Weekdays at 11 Eastern Time. Leadership and motivation, empathy and inspiration, Biz Dev Live, Biz Dev Live. Business development, not even selling it. Biz D with C, brought to you by Cameron T. Biz D with C, brought to you by Cameron T. This is business development, not even selling